Welcome to HFY Stories. Please subscribe to the channel. Your one click means the world to meet. 12 red contact markers began blinking out of sequence across the tactical glass. A young officer pressed 2 fingers against the scar along her left palm, while the gaps between hostile transmissions shrank from seconds to heartbeats. No one had fired yet. That was the problem. The enemy commander was still talking. Her fleets were still holding. But somewhere inside the second formation, hesitation was turning into agreement, and agreement was turning into motion. The officer could see it without hearing a single word. Message bursts multiplying, replies tightening, command traffic slipping into a rhythm that meant somebody had decided waiting was more dangerous than acting. She swallowed and looked toward the admiral. 27 minutes earlier, Lieutenant Nadia Ake had been worried about a completely different number. The CDS unspoken promise had appeared inside the Sorvan battle formation, so close that ordinary doctrine said the maneuver should have been impossible. Nadia watched hostile sensors interrogate their hull again and again, each sweep returning the same impossible mass. "Sir," she said, "their systems keep rejecting our profile." Admiral Thomas Beale sat in the command chair with one hand resting near his breast pocket. "Their systems are functioning." "That makes this worse. How long is this ship?" 4.2 kilometers. Nadia turned fully toward him. She had trained on every recognized coalition class. None came close. "You built a 4-kilometer warship and left it out of the books." "Not out of the books," Thomas said. "Spread across them." He explained only what she needed. 22 years of construction. 11 budget channels, each expense dull enough to survive routine review. Together, they had produced a vessel no hostile planning table had ever included. On the main display, 3 human colony worlds burned beneath thin atmospheric haze. That was why Thomas had brought the ship out of hiding. Across the system, High Commander Vess had stopped her attack. The pause had begun the instant the unspoken promise appeared between her fleets. Her sensor officers had checked the reading repeatedly. The result never changed. Their weapons had been designed around the largest known coalition vessels. The new arrival outweighed those assumptions so badly that their combat models returned no useful answer. Analyst Prawn stood at her side with a tablet held too tightly. "I submitted warnings," he said. Vess kept her eyes on the immense contact. "Your 4th assessment suggested an undisclosed construction program. I reduced the conclusion before filing." "Why?" "Because the scale I believed would have made the report look unserious." Vess finally faced him. "What did you believe?" "A ship was being built." "Like this?" Prawn looked back at the display. "No, I did not imagine this." When Vess opened a channel, Thomas appeared on her bridge screen with the calm posture of a man who had already made the dangerous decision years ago. "I need to know what you brought into my formation," she said. "A project that took 22 years to finish." "You came alone against 3 fleets." "Yes." "Why?" Thomas glanced toward the burning worlds. "Because a fleet would force you toward battle or retreat. One ship leaves room for another choice." "What choice?" "To hear me before anyone adds more dead to today." Vess studied him. Her forces had ceased fire 14 minutes earlier. The colonies had used every one of those minutes for evacuation, firefighting, triage. "What are you asking for?" "An updated calculation," Thomas said. "Your government decided humanity was safe to attack because the records you studied were incomplete. I'm giving you the missing part." "They were current records." "They were current records of what we allowed into the catalog." That landed harder than a threat. Vess knew Prawn had seen traces of the hidden program and had been ignored because the numbers had seemed too large to belong to reality. Thomas continued, "I'm not asking you to be afraid. Fear makes commanders sloppy. I'm asking you to be accurate." Then casualty data refreshed on his display. His jaw tightened. 1,400 confirmed dead across the colonies. The total is still moving. Vess looked away from the camera. Nadia saw the Admiral's fingers touch his pocket again. Then her own console changed. Sorvan fleet communications had been noisy since the ceasefire, but the second formation was becoming something else. Nadia isolated the pattern. 12 ships were exchanging shorter bursts, faster acknowledgements, more internal traffic, and less attention to central command. Her pulse climbed. "Sir?" Thomas turned. "I can't read their encrypted content. I can read behavior. Second Fleet is forming its own decision loop." "How close?" "Maybe 18 minutes, could be sooner." "Decision to do what?" Nadia rubbed the scar on her hand. "The pattern is aggressive. I can't prove intent, but they're converging on action." Thomas opened Vess's channel immediately. "High Commander, your second formation is slipping away from your control. 12 ships are building toward an independent move." Vess's expression hardened. "You penetrated our communications." "No timing, volume, response structure." "That's enough." "Why tell me?" "Because if one frightened captain fires, every other decision gets smaller." For 3 seconds, Vess did not answer. Then she turned sharply from the camera. "Second Fleet, hold position. No weapons release without my direct authorization." Nadia watched the hostile message storm break apart. Transmission counts fell. Several ships stopped maneuvering. She exhaled through her teeth. "It worked." Thomas closed the channel. "She still wants control of the outcome." "You keep giving her credit." "I keep seeing evidence." The conversation that followed became quieter. Vess returned alone to the camera frame. The rigid command cadence had gone from her voice. "Admiral, there is information you need before I withdraw." Thomas leaned forward slightly. "The strike plan contained civilian infrastructure inside its secondary authorization zones," she said. "I approved those parameters 6 weeks ago." "No one on the human bridge moved." Vess continued, forcing each sentence out cleanly. "The fleet briefing emphasized military and industrial targets. Some captains were not given the full secondary list. One vessel struck a population center without its captain understanding what lay inside the radius." Thomas's face did not change. "And the others?" he asked. "Some knew." The ventilation fans became the loudest sound on the unspoken promise. "Did they fire anyway?" "Yes." Nadia stared at the woman on the screen. Vess could have hidden behind procedure, blamed the captains, or let confusion survive into the inquiry. Instead, she was placing the distinction where it could hurt her. Thomas spoke carefully. "Why give me this now?" "Because you warned me about my own fleet when keeping silent would have benefited you. I will not answer that with concealment." Thomas reached into his pocket and removed a folded paper, old enough that its edges had softened. "This changes the next phase," he said. "I need written targeting records, who received them, who understood them, and who authorized each strike." "You will have them." "They go to the Coalition Council and to Galactic Oversight." Vess gave a single nod. "They should." Thomas looked down at the paper in his hand. 22 years ago, a committee rejected the ship you are looking at. Their numbers were reasonable. Their conclusion was wrong. I built it because I believed there might come a day when having overwhelming force available could prevent force from being used." His thumb moved across one worn fold. "I hoped its existence would be enough. Today proves it was." Vess's eyes held on him. "Then what is enough?" "Not one answer. Not today. Today you pull every Sorvan vessel out of this system, provide the records, and let us reach the people under those fires. After that, we discuss what prevents another commander from making the same calculation." Vess did not bargain. "I will order withdrawal." Before ending the channel, she paused. "For 8 years, our planners placed humanity in the limited danger category. Our surveys were accurate. Our inventory checks were accurate. Even our doctrine review was accurate." Thomas waited. "We measured what you possessed," she said. "We never measured what you were preparing to become." Thomas's gaze shifted briefly toward Prawn's analysis window on the shared feed. That was the missing question. The 3 Sorvan fleets turned for the outer system in disciplined sequence. On Vess's bridge, Prawn opened the private notes attached to his old report. Years earlier, he had deleted the sentence that felt impossible to defend. Now he restored the idea in different words. The hidden expenditure had been real, but he had misunderstood its purpose. The human vessel had enough weapons to slaughter the retreating fleet. It never fired. Prawn began a new report. On the unspoken promise, Nadia confirmed the last hostile contact crossing beyond immediate weapons range. System is clear. Set course for the nearest colony, Thomas said. We're entering atmosphere support range. We came because people needed help. That part starts now. As Nadia built the course, she caught sight of the old paper still in Thomas's hand. What is that? He unfolded it once. A committee decision. 3 short paragraphs written 22 years earlier. The project was too expensive. The authorized resources did not exist. The proposal was declined. Thomas had carried the rejection through postings, wars, reviews, and every year of the ship's construction. He opened the disposal slot beside his chair. The paper went in. No ceremony, no speech. Nadia watched the panel seal. After a moment she asked, was the ship worth 22 years? Thomas looked at the casualty count, then at the surviving population figures. Nearly 200,000 people on those worlds are still alive, he said. 1,400 aren't. I can't make one number erase the other. Nadia accepted that in silence, which for her was rare. Then curiosity won. You implied there could be more ships. I refused to answer Vess. I noticed I'm not Vess. Thomas looked at her for a long second. There is another dry dock, he said. It has been active for 11 years. Nadia forgot to breathe. How many? That answer stays with me. She turned back to navigation, smiling despite herself. Far below, emergency crews had begun marking safe corridors through the damaged colony zones. Nadia linked the unspoken promise into the rescue network and watched fresh icons populate her display. Medical shuttles, fire teams, evacuation craft. One surface beacon switched from red to green. Then a second. Then a third.